here we are, as members of Parliament, with a roll call of horror stories, because somehow, in 2022, waiting for an ambulance for more than 12 hours is somehow the new normal. How on earth has it come to this? We know that there are workforce problems in every single part of our health and social care sector and in every corner of our country, whether it's general practice, whether it's dentistry, pharmacies, and midwifery, nursing, they're all overstretched and understaffed. But it's midwives who send me their most distressed emails, because often for midwives, they train for their dream job, only to be plagued by nightmares that they haven't done enough to help young mothers, new mothers, and their babies at their time of need. Just last week, I was speaking with paramedics and other ambulance service staff as I took a 3-hour ride out with my local ambulance service. At 7 o'clock in the morning, we were called to see the very first patient. That patient had been waiting at home on the floor since 6 p.m. the night before. 13 hours. And before we could get to see that patient, we were called to a more urgent call. When we finally got to the hospital with that second patient, the paramedics checked the list of patients who had arrived at the hospital because they were very distressed that they hadn't been able to get to that first call and wanted to make sure that another ambulance had. And they were exhausted. They said in a 12-hour shift, they may only get one 20-minute break. They're exhausted because there are not enough staff. But for most of my constituents, day in, day out, it's access to their GPs that really, really matters. And too many of them are struggling. And it's no wonder, because the government said they had a target of recruiting 6,000 more GPs, but then have admitted within 3 years that they are going to fail to meet that target. It's frustrating for patients, but it's also dangerous for GPs and their staff. Just in the summer this year, we had reports from a particular surgery in Walton in Surrey, where police were called to a GP surgery because of people making threats of physical violence. That is surely unacceptable. Where is the urgent drive to recruit and retain our GPs? And Madam Deputy Speaker, how on earth are we going to retain and motivate highly trained professionals when our hospitals are on the verge of collapse? Up and down the country, there are hospitals in dire need of repair. In Eastbourne, and I see the Honourable Member for Eastbourne here in her place, we know there has been concerns for a long time that the hospital may or may not be coming. And it was reported recently by some staff that they had been told, allegedly, that a new hospital was even a barefaced lie. There are other hospital trusts that are deeply concerned about the lack of progress on the new hospital programme. For example, in Sutton, St Helier Hospital was built before World War II, and in my own trust in West Hertfordshire, which covers St Albans, Watford and Hemel, we have buildings which are life expired. I have been there a number of times and I've seen the extraordinary work by professionals in my local hospital trust. We had the first virtual ward during the pandemic. We have 2 robotic suites, but we also have a lift that breaks down right next to the ward that treats children who are ill. And when that lift breaks down, ambulances have to be stationed outside one side of the hospital so they can drive round to the other side. This is completely unacceptable. So I would like to ask whether ministers will confirm that all of these hospitals, right across the UK, wherever they may be, are going to get the funding that they were promised under the new hospital programme, that there won't be delays and there won't be penny pinching, because we heard earlier in the debate that there are plans to have thousands more doctors and nurses trained, and it was made by a member, the point was made by a member on the opposite bench who's no longer in his place. He asked where we were going to train all these doctors and nurses. Well, we can say that if there is any penny pinching on the size of our new hospitals, they certainly won't be getting trained in our area. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, our NHS and social care need people, they need tech, they need beds and they need buildings. There is no silver bullet to solving all of the issues in our NHS and social care, but having proper workforce planning, getting some plans in place, would be the closest thing to it. That's why my Liberal Democrat colleagues and I are happy to support this motion today.
Bergen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy.